Wow, Bratz really is back. That's never happened before. So it's kind of a meme at this point for any new Bratz development to get a quote tweet of some sort with this video clip attached. And for me, it never gets old. Especially in a world where we're actively getting new playline releases like Always Bratz, which was a while back, but still. Like, yeah, there's reason to celebrate. But while this specific clip from the brand's 10th anniversary commercial has done the rounds on Twitter many a times over the past few years, it's often been used more as a joyous reaction to their current developments rather than a reflection on their first real time trying out a comeback. But of course, because I have a ruthless nostalgia book for the 2010s doll landscape, it only makes sense that this clip shoots me all the way back to that time over a decade ago. God, I am getting old. That time all the way back in 2010 where, again, Bratz was attempting a return to relevance, much like they are now. So what exactly happened in 2010? In 2010, Bratz proclaimed that they were back, as MGA Entertainment put a metric boatload of capital into a full-scale brand relaunch, with new doll releases, new media tie-ins, new merchandise, and the return of the beloved Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha, and Jade. And I've been thinking about it. A lot. So, as Bratz continues its current slow burn comeback, I want to give this early 2010s era the retrospective it deserves. What I want to do today is go through that initial comeback and the brand's evolution over the following years, wrapping up with some thoughts on what impact it's had on the brand as a whole. Let's take a look back at the time when the Bratz turned 10. Hi, I'm Ari Lynette, and welcome to the Oliverse. I'll quickly note that all of the information in this video that I've sourced is from what I can tell accurate, though I wasn't able to pinpoint every little bit of information I wanted to, so if there's anything I've gotten wrong in this video, please let me know. The first thing I should note about the 10th anniversary celebrations is that they didn't actually occur during the Bratz's 10th anniversary. Most Bratz fans will know that the line got their first release in 2001, and the Bratz celebrated their 10th anniversary in fall of 2010. One reason for that, at least I believe, is so that they could market the event around the date October 10th, 2010, or 10-10-10. The other reason was, So, MG Entertainment went through some major legal troubles regarding the Bratz brand, and in 2008, this came to a head when US District Judge Stephen Lawson ruled that MGA had to stop producing Bratz dolls. In short, Bratz designer Carter Bryant developed the line during the time he was working for Mattel, so Mattel was now claiming that MGA and its CEO Isaac Larian had infringed on what was supposedly their property by producing the Bratz. If you don't know, this creator-to-company ownership thing is pretty common in the toy world. For example, Garrett Sander is often credited as the creator of Monster High, but since the line was made under Mattel, the property is in legal terms owned by Mattel, and not by any individuals who would have actually thought up the line. So Mattel is claiming, on the basis of this rule, that Bratz is their property as it was technically created under their roof. And initially the courts agreed with them. Mattel was awarded $10 million in copyright infringement and $90 million in breach of contract. Oh, and they were also handed ownership of the entire Bratz franchise. In terms of what this meant for the dolls, it meant that 2009 was kind of a limbo year. There were releases. MGA still produced Bratz dolls despite the ruling, but it was a far cry from the past few years of bombardment. If you look at the doll releases that came out in 2009 compared to 2008, it's practically halved. Many proposed doll releases were scrapped, others were given to MGA's new replacement line, Moxie Girls. The Kids and Little Angels spin-offs had the Bratz name dropped like a sack of spuds. And the two new movies from that year got relegated to an international-only release. Meanwhile, Mattel was working on their own take on Bratz after being granted ownership of the brand. By the end of 2009, the Bratz as we knew it had well and truly wound down. But by the end of that same year, it seemed like the legal tides were turning in MGA's favour, as that recall I mentioned earlier was halted, and the previous ruling of Mattel claiming ownership over the brand was deemed a couple of steps too far. So while they were ordered to settle things with Mattel out of court, and Mattel's take on Bratz was scrapped, MGA realised they had an opening, and set to work on a comeback for Bratz. And by July 2010, where Lawson's ruling was officially rejected and MGA was deemed the rightful owner of Bratz, there was a whole new set of big-eyed, big-lipped, detachable shoe-wearing dolls waiting in the wings. All that was left to do was get them on the shelves. Bratz was set to make their comeback during the fall 2010 shopping season for multiple reasons. One, fall is the season nearest to the holidays, which tends to be the time for big toy launches. Two, it would be the nearest holiday season to the 10th anniversary of the original Bratz launch, May 2001. And 3, because, as I said earlier, they could market the 10th anniversary celebrations around the date 10-10-10. That's October 10th, 2010. So yeah, it wasn't technically during the real 10th anniversary, which would have been closer to May 2011. But timeliness, marketability, it is what it is. Let's go over the dolls produced in this era. The 2010 Bratz dolls featured new bodies with a more streamlined sculpt compared to the classic dolls, both in a standard body with shoulder and hip joints, and a fully articulated party body. The dolls used the classic 2001 head sculpt, but featured new screenings highly inspired by Carter Bryant's original sketches for the Bratz line. These designs for the eyes and lips actually featured on initial prototypes for the original 2001 dolls, before being eschewed for the classic screenings the Bratz were known for. Their most defining feature was arguably the fish lips, which is one of the marmites of the Bratz fandom. People either love them or they hate them. Personally, I quite like them, but I get people's issues with them. The dolls also featured new shoe molds, a mix of new and classic accessory molds, and brand new fashions with a more conservative leaning. And by conservative leaning, I mean leggings. If these dolls weren't wearing full-length pants, they were almost certainly wearing some sort of leggings. The most infamous of them being the dreaded grey leggings. Sometimes as full leggings, sometimes in sock form, sometimes you'd get socks over leggings, sometimes they'd be black or pastel pink, but you'd very rarely see a bare leg. This seems like a very deliberate move to avert the often repeated criticism of Bratz outfits allegedly being too skimpy. Though I'd say quite a heavy-handed move that isn't really applied in the best way. Finally, let's talk about the doll's hair and how it wasn't very good. From all the accounts I've heard, and based on the dolls in this line that I own, the 2010 Bratz mainly used polypropylene hair, a type that tends to be coarse, prone to frizz, and nowhere near the quality of what was used on classic Bratz, which tended to use either Saran or Kanekalon hair. Like, my Leora's hair is very intense, and even a boil wash hasn't helped it. It's not this bad on all of the ones I own, but it's not ideal regardless. This wasn't something completely new to MGA or to Bratz. A majority of the 2009 releases featured this hair type, and the same goes for most of the Moxie girls around this time. So yeah, the dolls were a mixed bag as far as quality goes, but their designs were charming, albeit a slight left turn from Bratz's usual aesthetic. The release lineup for 2010 was, in my opinion, modest but well marketed. We got the core 10th anniversary dolls featuring Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha and Jade, plus boys Cameron and Dylan, who featured flocked shaved heads as opposed to rooted hair. Both the core 4 and the boys all came in slim boxes with minimal extra accessories and no extra outfits. We got a twins duo pack of Phoebe and Roxy, also featuring brand new looks, and a couple of accessories. These dolls got some criticism for coming with plain brown hair as opposed to Sugar and Spice's classic red tinted hair. We got a deluxe party line featuring, again, Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha and Jade. These were the only dolls this season that came with 2 outfits, plus fabric purses and the deluxe articulated bodies. Though the 2010 screenings and the amount of layering on the outfits weren't necessarily everyone's thing, the party line still feels like the most generally well-liked collection from 2010, and it's not hard to see why. We got a duo of new talking dolls. The Let's Talk line featured Yasmin and Chloe scaled up to a larger size with fully articulated bodies. We also got 2 big Bratz based on the core Yasmin and Chloe dolls from that year. Overall, it feels like the release slate for 2010 hit a lot of classic Bratz markers. We got a basic line, some boys, some twins, talking dolls, big Bratz, and a classic 2-outfit deluxe line. But there's one more line we need to talk about. The 10-10-10 line, part of the core 10th anniversary line, featured 10 new characters added to the Bratz pack. This was a major part of the marketing push for the 10th anniversary campaign, even appearing on the 10th anniversary logo, which was featured on the majority of Bratz marketing material around this time. This new lineup of Bratz characters, all girls, would be introduced alongside the main 4's core dolls. The 10 characters were Adri, Ashby, Carrie, Joelle, Leora, Liliana, Lydia, Shadi, Shira, and Tyler. Remember their names. Or don't. Only 2 of them ever appear again. These dolls were packaged in slim boxes without extra accessories or outfits, much like the core dolls, featured the standard bodies, though there are stock images featuring versions on deluxe party bodies, and come wearing new outfits, very much adhering to the design principles of 2010 Bratz. And by that, I mean leggings. Also, the Liliana and Leora dolls' outfits would be scaled up and reused for the Let's Talk Yasmin and Chloe dolls, respectively. The reactions to these new characters were Mixed.
Some people liked seeing new characters added to the Bratz universe, while others would have preferred to see recurring and one-off characters from past Bratz lines make a comeback instead.
Having 10 of them was also a point of contention.
It was very much seen as a quantity over quality thing, and yeah, even I can't deny that, as much as I have nostalgia for these girls. They just wanted that all tense synergy, I guess. As for extra merch, we got 3 play sets, a new party hangout, a new colour of the FM Cruiser, and a new edition of the Style and Salon and Spa. We also received 3 fashion packs, roller skates, lunchboxes, skateboards, backpacks, pencil cases, and all that lovely supplementary merch.
Overall, a pretty extensive spread for a solid brand relaunch. But I'd be missing half the story if I didn't mention the non-material aspects of this relaunch. Let's start with the big thing that happened in terms of Bratz media. Or should I say the thing that didn't?
The Bratz Rock web series. This web series was going to be a major part of the anniversary campaign, and if you don't believe me, just look at the whole last press release it got. PR Newswire reads, on October 10th, 2010, Bratz takes control of the YouTube homepage as MGA Entertainment unveils the first ever Bratz webisode from their brand new web series, Bratz Rock. Comprised of 11 episodes scheduled to air throughout the rest of the year, the original web series, Bratz Rock, follows Bratz girls Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha, and Jade, really showing off those trademarks, as they get the chance to be stars, with a Z, in a song contest held by their idol, super celebrity Whisper. But as the Bratz get closer to finishing a song for the contest, they also get closer to finding out who Whisper really is. ... The first episode of Bratz Rock, entitled Whispers in the Schoolyard, launches exclusively on the front page of youtube.com. Oh, I'm sorry, www.youtube.com, the world's #1 video content destination, on 10/10/10. And on that fateful day of 10/10/10, we got to see the first episode of Bratz Rock, an awkwardly animated flash webisode where nothing really happens other than Yasmin coming to school from the dentist, seeing a van with a Whisper on it, and hearing everyone talk about something big happening. And that's it.
Do you know what's up?
Weren't you at the assembly?
Then you haven't heard the news. It's colossal.
The most amazing thing that's ever happened at our school.
Wait! What's going on?
And what was the big thing that was happening? What was this massive thing that had never happened in the history of the whole school? We never find out.
Because a few days after the episode premiered, the series was announced to be postponed due to middling fan reception.
And it never came back.
We never got to see the rest of the episodes, we never got to find out more about the 10 new characters, some of which appeared briefly in the first episode, and we never got to find out that big thing that Sasha, Shira, and Tyler were on about.
Can you believe it? So amazing.
Also, this is purely a guess, but I imagine if this series had continued, there's a chance we could have seen more dolls of the 10/10/10 girls, but judging by the content of episode 1, I have my doubts.
There's another piece of media I want to talk about, and it's definitely another infamous piece of media.
Bratz has had a long history of music, from the Show Me What You Got and Look Around singles, to the music from the TV series and the movie soundtracks. It's undeniable that Bratz music has a certain appeal to it that has captured a lot of people, and the 2010 line would be no different. So, what would the minds behind So Good, Just Let Go Now, and My Attitude have for us in 2010? Yep, this absolute headbanger of an anthem, this global chart topper, this cultural cornerstone with lyrics that unearth the secret depths of the human psyche, such as, "My friends are my heroes. I'm a hero when I'm with my friends." What an astute observation on the world. Burt Bacharach is shaking, Quincy Jones is in shambles, Diane Warren is hiding in a cupboard from the sheer star power of this musical juggernaut.
Okay, maybe I took that joke a little too far, but really? Is this what we're returning with?
Yeah, the reception to this song was pretty unanimously negative. And come to think of it, that web series was going to have a musical element to this. We were going to be subjected to this and other hits.
Yeah, so overall, the media aspect of the 10th anniversary comeback didn't really do so well.
And from this point to around mid-2012, when we got the Style Stars line and accompanying songs, we wouldn't get any real supplementary media to the Bratz, other than some online journal entries.
Bratz 10th anniversary campaign was, from what I can tell, a humble success.
It wasn't a phenomenon by any means, and it didn't get anywhere near the level of success that Bratz reached in the 2000s, but it certainly didn't bomb hard enough to end the line, unlike some other rebrands that Bratz would undergo. Not today. Part of the less meteoric reception to the new line was likely the changes in design to more conservative outfits, with the dolls losing a good amount of their signature edge.
Part of that was just honestly a matter of changing times.
Bratz was re-entering the doll market, but it was a market that was evolving, and Bratz didn't hit the same in 2010 as it did in 2001. It's also notable that around this time we got
Now we're fierce. Monster, hey.
Yeah, the 10th anniversary Bratz landed on shelves around the same time that the first Monster High dolls were already proving a success. In some respects, Bratz was experiencing a similar relevance slip to Barbie in the early 2000s. Ironically though, the shoe was on the other foot, as Mattel was the one with the hot ticket item in Monster High.
But hey, the fall 2010 season would not be the last set of Bratz, as MGA was already planning their lineup for a 2011 release slate, which leaves room for improvements. And continued issues. So, moving into 2011, let's see how Bratz evolved, starting with the spring releases.
We got a new hairplay line in All Glammed Up, a new set of twins featuring newbies Sorrel and Keelan, and the Bratz Rock line, which likely would have been tied to the web series had it lasted beyond one episode. The Rock dolls also had the articulated party bodies, but none of the 2011 dolls would come with multiple outfits. We got 3 new characters in the Slim Box Express It line, but interestingly, these characters reused names from one-off characters in the earlier Bratz canon. Rena from the Head Games Design Your Own doll, Sierra from the Wicked Twins set, and Daphne from the Porcelain Collectors line. We also got the first new funky fashion makeover heads alongside the All Glammed Up line. Some notable improvements from this season include the more distinct new characters, with the 3 Express It girls being much more warmly received than the 10-10-10 girls, as well as less grey leggings. Hey, I never said no grey leggings.
By the autumn of 2011, that's fall for my American viewers, we got some more new dolls and an interesting evolution.
We saw some really creative lines such as Masquerade by Bratz, Platinum Shimmers, and the Toys R Us exclusive Stylin' in the City. The amount of leggings began to reduce, and Bratz seemed more willing to let the girls go out with bare legs, particularly with On the Mic and the Wild Wild West budget line, which I think worked pretty well. There were still dolls with predominantly full pants and leggings, such as the holiday and sleepover budget lines, but it definitely felt more natural and less government mandated. However, we also got another evolution to the leggings crisis. Painted on leggings. The Masquerade by Bratz line featured 5 out of 7 dolls with painted on perma leggings.
And while the war on leggings was raging on, we got a development to 2010's other big problem. New characters.
While spring 2011 was very measured in how it introduced new characters, the autumn was an absolute overkill of new characters. The Slim Box Style It line featured the well-received return of classic characters and possible arch-rivals Megan and Dana, but we also saw 4 new characters. Bridget, with a name reused from one of the old triplet sets, as well as newbies Jaylene, Myra and Tessa. We got a new boy character in On the Mic with Thad, as well as the return of Eaton. All of the characters in the Masquerade line were new characters, aside from a Toys R Us exclusive Chloe, so that's 3 boys and 6 girls. We also got another wave of that Slim Box Style It line featuring new characters Nadine, Macy, Rylan and Shania. Let's add those 4 to that total.
I'm gonna need a calculator for this.
So, in autumn 2011 alone, we got 18 new characters that all only make one appearance in all of Bratz. Expand that to the full year of 2011 and we have 23. Include the 2010 newbies, and that's 33 new characters, all with barely a hint of development other than a vague description and a nickname. And all but 2 of them would never make a second doll appearance.
That is asinine?
Like, early Bratz did bring out a lot of different characters over the years, but it never felt this intense or like they were doing it just for the sake of making new characters.
And some of them just did not look good.
Like, that last wave of Style It had some of the laziest designs I've seen in Bratz, especially when you compare them to the 2010 dolls, which, as stuffy and layered as they might be, have a level of creativity and effort.
So this is where we were in 2011, let's see what happened in 2012.
Versions of the 2010 screenings would continue to be used in spring 2012 on several lines, including hairplay line Feather Aegis, the colourful neon runway, and whatever this line was.
Bratz cats meow, kitty chic wow.
Honestly, I love this line, as strange as it is. However, we also got some new screenings that harked back to more traditional Bratz screenings, notably on the new Funk and Glow line, Heartbreakers, and Desert Jewels, which was released alongside the US release of the CGI Desert Jewels movie from 2009.
So what about the characters?
Other than the main four, we got the return of Katia in the new Desert Jewels line, and in the Slimbox Trendit line we got another Megan, who was quickly becoming a mainstay in the revived line, plus the returns of Vanessa and... Shardy? Yes, Shardy was the first 10th anniversary girl to get a second doll. Bear in mind the Megan, Vanessa and Shardy dolls got a very limited international release, but hey, at least they got out somehow. The outfits from the Trendit line would also be used in the True Hope charity line, featuring bald versions of Chloe, Yasmin and Cameron.
And possibly the biggest surprise as far as characters go, not a single one was introduced this season. This year, in fact.
For once, it seemed like MGA was listening and had chosen to focus their efforts on the core 4 characters and Megan, with some occasional throwbacks. Fall 2012 continued this with the return of classic character Fiona, while also debuting a new art style which received quite a lot of love. There was a prevailing criticism about the repetitive boxes in both the spring and fall of this year, but even with that, this season had some very strong lines. We got a 2-outfit deluxe line with Boutique, the very 2010s music line Style Stars, complete with swappable wigs, and the edgy Totally Tattooed line, which really pushed the envelope for 2010s era Bratz. Even though the prototypes did come with helmets that the final dolls never got, still very strong lines. We also got fantasy line Chic Mystique and a new holiday wave with special Funk and Glow variants. Sure, a few lines still had painted on leggings, but the designs compared to a year ago are far more consistent. We also got more consistent fashion pack releases, including a special 4-pack. We even got some new media with the release of a brand new Nintendo DS game to tie in with the Boutique line, and 4 new songs to tie into the Style Stars line.
And all of them are better songs than I like, which... that's not a massive feat, but hey, I like to see pop girlies making a comeback. Remarkably consistent.
2012 also saw the release of Bratzillas, which was a spin-off line themed to the witchy cousins of the Bratz. They mostly operated separately from the main Bratz line, hence why I'm not really addressing them too much in this video. So, it seems like by the end of 2012, Bratz had ironed out a lot of the issues that they'd had in 2010 and 2011, and they'd garnered not as big of a following as they had in the 2000s, but it seems like they'd found their footing and had really settled into their identity.
Hopefully now they can continue on this path, keep building up on the strong year they've had, and not make any sudden left field changes to the brand. 2013. Let's talk. I remember when the doll community gradually found out about what was happening to Bratz in 2013, and it was a wild ride.
In November 2012, we got our first hints at the changes through some listings on Chinese shopping site Taobao. 2 of the new dolls leaked on there with relatively nice faces, the crunchy hair that was kind of expected at this point, and new bodies. Ones with proportions a lot closer to Bratzilla's, which were closer in scale to Barbie than they were to Bratz.
And while some people thought that it was just the photos that made these particular dolls look taller, by January it would become obvious that it wasn't just the photos.
B-R-A-T-Z, yeah. Bratz, real Bratz girls, you and me.
Over the next 2 months, it became clear that 2013 would be a year of big changes for Bratz. The line would feature a completely new logo, an altered slogan of Unleash Your Passion, and most notably, the brand new taller bodies.
This change was very polarizing, and while some people were intrigued and even optimistic about the new bodies, others hated them and thought that they took away a crucial part of the Bratz doll's signature identity.
That being said, one cool aspect of the bodies is that the majority of them featured articulated elbows and wrists. Also, there was this one prototype doll that was showcased in the marketing that received a lot of hype, but this doll never got a release. As for the ones that did get released, the first one that comes to mind for me is Totally Polished. While this line came with false nails for the user to apply, this line was far from a Magic Fashion nails, with the 6 dolls having unique outfits featuring vibrant prints. I actually have Fiona from this line, and she's one of my favourite dolls in my collection. Plus her hair is this gorgeous saran, which is definitely a departure from what a lot of the 2010s Bratz had. The other big line this season was Sea Stunners, which got some praise for being a creative take on a mermaid transformation line. We also had a new safari line, In the Wild, a new swimwear line, Bahama Beach, a new basic line, creatively titled Express It again, and also another cats line, now with painted on leggings.
So, not so original. Not so original.
Can't win them all, I guess.
Overall, this was a pretty great spread of lines with gorgeous faces and mostly well-designed outfits. And part of me wonders whether these lines would have been more popular if they'd been on the original bodies, since the new taller ones were the most polarizing element of this season's range.
We also got some new media tie-ins with Woo's World and Stardoll, so it seemed like MGA was putting in a little extra effort to push this relaunch. Fall 2013 saw the Bratz take on a career line with My Passion. We also got a very zany new costume bash line, a hairplay line called Twisty Style that didn't age well, and most notably this brightly coloured lycra-clad superhero line called Action Heroes. This would feature the return of Phoebe and Roxy, this time with the right hair colours, plus the return of She-Ra, making her the second and final 10-10-10 doll to make a second appearance. The Action Heroes line would get a tie-in video game style app, plus there'd be a more general Bratz Cam app. Most interestingly, we'd also see this special edition line featuring Chloe and Yasmin in formal gowns. I'm pretty sure this line didn't get a release beyond Russia, but even getting to see gowns of this scale on newer Bratz was exciting, at least for me and a lot of other fans. 2014 would see a continuation of the taller-bodied Bratz with a second wave of My Passion and the duct tape fashion line, both of which had some great updated screenings. It's a shame that these would be the only Bratz dolls released in 2014.
So somewhere down the line, MGA clearly saw that this relaunch didn't quite work the way that they wanted it to. So they made the decision to relegate the 2014 lines to international only and put the brand on pause.
I mentioned in my Wild Hearts Crew video that MGA tends to admit when a brand hasn't sold well and discontinues it pretty mercifully, and the 2013 Bratz era is definitely an example of this. But instead of discontinuing the brand, they'd pause new releases for the next year and go back to the drawing board to plan a new comeback. One that would, and I quote, get the brand back to what made it such a massive success in the first place.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Have fun. Hope it works this time around.
And with this announcement, that meant the end of the brand's post-reboot era, when Bratz had been solidly on shelves again for around 3.5 years.
I feel like this era of Bratz doesn't really get much discussion around it, aside from discourse specifically around the taller bodies from 2013. If I had to pinpoint a reason, it's most likely just due to overshadowing.
The classic run from 2001 to 2009 is always going to have legacy and nostalgia on its side, while the eventual 2015 reboot would be so polarizing that even nowadays, discourse on both ends of the spectrum is inevitable. Meanwhile, the current era of Bratz, well, it's the current era, isn't it? Of course people are going to talk about it while it's still unfolding right now.
In comparison, the early 2010s run is kind of just a thing that happened and doesn't really inspire anywhere near the level of excitement or discussion or vitriol. It's just there.
The 10th anniversary campaign was intended to make a big splash and put Bratz back in the spotlight, and while it was successful enough to put them back on the shelves, the spotlight had already been stolen. Bratz stopped being the dominating force it used to be and settled into a somewhat comfortable position in the MGA portfolio, alongside Moxie Girls and Lala Loopsy, never hitting anywhere close to the sales or notoriety that the brand did in its heyday.
They were now coasting, and the way I see it, MGA wasn't happy with that. They saw it as less of a coasting and more of a flatline.
Hence why they flipped the script in 2013 with the tall Bratz. And when that didn't work, they figured that time was the issue, and they needed to truly put the brand to rest before putting in the work for a true relaunch.
While I think MGA had understandable reasons for putting the brand on pause, I can't help but think what would have happened if they didn't.
Firstly, because as someone who really liked the early 2010s era, I would have loved to see its continued evolution. And secondly, would that mean Bratz never rebooted in 2015? Would the 2018 Hayden Williams collection end up existing? What would the brand look like now?
These are all questions that will occupy my restless night brain, because of course they will. But to save you that trouble, I'll leave you with a much broader, different question. And Pog just fell over. Great. Honestly, you're such a drama queen. But to save you that trouble, I'll leave you with a different, much broader question. What does this era mean to Bratz?
Was it an era of compromise between the brand's past and its many critics? Was it an era of adaptation, trying to find their feet in a new, unfamiliar doll landscape dominated by Monster High? Or was it just that time where they introduced a bunch of new characters in ugly grey leggings? Even through all this, the Bratz from the early 2010s have a lot to offer, and I love revisiting the dolls from this time. While that's partially for the nostalgia rush of being around online when these came out, I have a lot of love for those 2010 screenings. The inventive themes like Masquerade and Totally Tattooed, the sheer camp factor of lines like Cats, the new characters that I wished would come back, dare I say still do, and just seeing how the brand adapted to the times is genuinely fascinating.
Doll lines do have to adapt to the times, and 2010 was the first time where Bratz really had to pivot to this new doll landscape.
And while it certainly wouldn't be the last time, it might be the one with the best memories for me.
Thank you for watching this video. I actually started scripting this video before I came up with the idea for the doll autopsies, but I think it makes a lot more sense to cover individual eras of Bratz in their own videos, since it's such an encompassing brand that's been out for such a long time. And this particular era just happens to be on my mind a lot. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you have your own memories of this era, or if you have any hot takes on it, feel free to let me know in the comments. And of course, if you want to see more content from me, subscribe to the Oliver's Dolls YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching. From me and the Pog, new angle. From me and the Pog, have a scorching, slamming, rockin' day. So this last little part didn't really fit into the video anywhere, but I couldn't not make this video without mentioning the Bratz Masquerade commercial and how it just like full-on interpolates a Missy Elliott song.
Make you do a double take, rock a showstopper, flow popper.
Make you do a double take, mask rocker show, stop ahead and fix.
Like, I don't know if this was done with all the right approvals. To be honest, I highly doubt that they ran this by Missy's team, but I would have loved to be a fly on that wall.